This week marks the start of Pride Month, the anniversary of a different rebellion that took place 51 years ago when LGBTQ people rioted at New York City's Stonewall Inn after a series of police raids and acts of brutality inside the bar. Now, in the midst of renewed protests against police, a recent wave of killings and violence against black transgender people has many activists calling for trans voices to be centered in calls for Black Lives Matter. NewsHour Weekend's Yvette Feliciano spoke with Imaro Jones, a Soros Equality Fellow and creator of Translash Media.
This is the start of Pride Month. Obviously, it's the 51st anniversary of the Stonewall Rebellion. How does that moment in LGBTQ history connect to this moment we're having right now?
I'm sitting in one of my most favorite spots in all of Los Angeles. It's a tiny little courtyard named after one of my heroes, Bayard Rustin. Now, a lot of you may not know who he is, but I can promise you, you know his work. That March on Washington, where Dr. King delivered his famous I Have a Dream speech, Bayard Rustin is the man trusted in organizing that march.
Bring to you the executive director of the March on Washington, the man who organized this whole thing, Mr. Bayard Rustin.
Bayard Rustin is so important to the civil rights movement that there's quite possibly wouldn't be Dr. King in terms of the way that we know him without its influence. You see, it was Mr. Rustin that taught Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. about the principles of nonviolence protesting. And one of the reasons why Bayard Rustin is one of my heroes is because he did all of this as an openly gay man. Not a closeted man, openly gay during the civil rights movement. So I thought it was fitting that we would meet here with organizers of the All Black Lives protest march that's happening on Sunday, June 14th. And so here we are at the LGBT Center in Los Angeles, celebrating intersectionality, celebrating Black lives, celebrating queer lives, and talking to two men who are trying to make these two worlds one.
If you can't get a decent salary for men who are working in the name of God, how the hell are you going to get rid of poverty? All over the country, people are telling me, you can't depend on the unions, they're anti-Negro, they won't stand with you. Well, I think the record here shows that in Memphis, this fight is going to be won because the black people of this community and the trade unions stand together, man to man.
Black Lives Matter is our call to action. It is a tool to reimagine a world where Black people are free to exist, free to live. It is a tool for our allies to show up differently for us. It is a tool for our allies to show up differently for us. It is a tool for our allies to show up differently for us.
Alicia Garza Swartz, co-founder of Black Lives Matter. Garza was born in Oakland, California on January the 4th, 1981. She grew up known as Alicia Swartz in Marion County in a mixed race and mixed religion household with a Jewish stepfather and an African American mother. What I find interesting is the surname Swartz is a last name of German origin, meaning black. Modern spelling in German is Schwarz. It was originally a nickname for somebody with black hair or a black complexion. Interesting. The family ran an antiques business, assisted later by her younger brother Joey. In her teens, Alicia engaged in activism, promoting school sex education about birth control. Opal Tometi, born August the 15th, 1984, is a Nigerian-American human rights activist, writer, strategist and community organizer. She is a co-founder of the 20lives Matter. She is the former executive director of the United States' first national immigrants' rights organization for people of African descent, the Black Alliance for Just Immigration, BAJI. BAJI provides training and technical assistance to partner organizations to develop leadership skills, works with faith communities to harness their prophetic voice, and initiates vibrant dialogues with African Americans and Black immigrants to discover more about race or diverse identities, racism, migration, and globalization. BAJI. Patrice Cullors, born June 20th, 1983, is an American artist and activist. Cullors is an advocate for prison abolition in Los Angeles and a co-founder of the 20lives Matter movement. She also identifies as a queer activist. She earned a degree in religion and philosophy from UCLA. She teaches at Otis College of Art and Design in the Public Practice program. She also teaches in the Master's Art in Social Justice and Community Organizing at Prescott College. In an interview, Cullors has described herself and Alicia Garza, or Swartz, as trained Marxists.
I also think that it might I think of a lot of things. The first thing I think is that we actually do have an ideological frame. Myself and Alicia in particular are trained organizers. We are trained Marxists. We are trained Marxists.
Karl Heinrich Marx, the father of Marxism, was born on May 5, 1818, in the Kingdom of Prussia, part of the German Confederation.
His grandfathers on both sides came from lines of famous rabbis, but his own father had converted to Protestantism, given the barriers to Jewish involvement in society as full citizens.
In 1835, Marx left home to attend the university, where he became fascinated with the teachings of German philosopher G.W.F. Hegel.
He had a full and exciting life, but was captivated by these big ideas coming from Hegel about what determined the path of a society of human civilization.
In 1848, Marx and Engels laid out their concept of socialism in their most famous work, the Communist Manifesto. In their writings, they championed the worker and advocated a classless society that dissolved bonds between the proletariat and the bourgeoisie.
The ink was barely dry when a wave of revolution swept all over Europe. He was seen as so seditious that he couldn't find a home anywhere in continental Europe, and therefore exiled to London.
What most folks are unaware of is that the clenched fist is not a symbol of black liberty, but of anti-fascism, and was ironically controlled by Marxist communism as controlled opposition. So in other words, they gave space and they gave license for a more radical left-wing opposition so that they could bring in firmer governmental control. Antifa, for example, is a political movement in Germany composed of multiple far-left autonomous militant groups and individuals who describe themselves as anti-fascists, a birthchild of Marxism. So no, this emblem of the clenched fist is not for the furtherance of the black people, although we've seen it used by Jesse Owens and the Black Panther Party, but rather its origins can be found in the Soviet Union, the USSR. We see ourselves as a part of the global black family, and we are aware of the different ways we are impacted or privileged as black people who exist in different parts of the world. We are guided by the fact that all Black Lives Matter, regardless of actual or perceived sexual identity, gender expression, economic status, ability, disability, religious beliefs or disbeliefs, immigration status or location. We make space for transgender brothers and sisters to participate and lead. We are self-reflexive and do the work required to dismantle cisgender privilege and uplift black trans folk, especially black trans women who continue to be disproportionately impacted by trans antagonistic violence. We build a space that affirms black women and is free from sexism, misogyny, and environments in which men are centered.
But what's most important for you to understand about me right now is that I identify as both black and as transgender or trans. And yes, I'm going to talk to you today about how black trans lives matter. As I do so, I'm going to share a few scenes from my own life, mixed in with the ways that race and gender have historically and currently intersected to shape the lives of black trans people.
My name is Ian Field Stewart. I use they, them, she, her pronouns, and I'm the founder of the Oprah Project. Today, I call upon each and every one of you to make a commitment. Today, I urge you to commit that today is the very last day that transphobia will claim the lives, loves, and joys of Black trans people.
My body defies the restrictions of a society consumed by boxes and binaries and are you a boy or a girl? Independent of such conventions, my body clings instead to the long ago lore that understood its magic. I contain multitudes.
That funding comes in addition to more than $33 million in grants to Black Lives Matter movements from top Democratic Party donor George Soros through his Open Society foundations, as well as grant making from the Center for American Progress.
Okay, Rachel, does it matter who helped fund them? Of course. And this march was not really about women's rights or equality for women, because if it was, I think we would have seen the march move to the front of the Saudi Arabian embassy. You have to ask yourself, why would a billionaire like George Soros fund all these organizations behind it? The reason is he's had a lifelong dream of one world government, of elites, redistributing wealth and setting up rules for the rest of us.
George Soros, the man, actually grew up a Hungarian Jew under Nazi Germany and watched 500,000 people in his community murdered, and that is why his entire life has been dedicated to equality and justice, and why his money goes to causes that he perceives as being about equality and justice. Again, we're all different reasons, but they all contribute to the same message, which is that internationally women matter, we contribute to the economy, and that's really what the day was about.
The truth,
Candace,
the absolute truth about what is happening in Black America. You are being used, abused, and lied to and manipulated emotionally by the Democrat Party. That is what I am here to tell you. You want to keep uprising and talking about racism when they're taking our fathers out of the home?
Now, this is a quite interesting statement. As you are mostly aware, I consider Candace Owens part of the Boule, Colin Kaepernick part of the Boule. I'm not for left wing or right wing or independent politics, but for once I actually agree with Candace Owens on this statement, you know. She says, don't throw money at Black Americans to riot. Your organization is a disgrace, and Soros himself is absolute filth, in my book. Candace Owens. Interestingly, following Candace Owens' tweets regarding George Soros and them taking advantage of the left wing and vulnerable people, Katie Sanders, who works for PolitiFact, or the managing editor, should I say, of PolitiFact, she made a video rebuttaling Candace Owens' charges that George Soros was funding these movements. Katie Sanders. Doesn't that sound a little bit like Bernie Sanders? Doesn't she look like she could even be related to Bernie Sanders? Whatever the case is, I found that very interesting that this lady came to the defense of George Soros as she was virtue signaling on her channel and tried to debunk what Candace said as fiction and false. Ray McKeeson lives in a house owned by a board member of George Soros' Open Foundation, and the Black Lives Matter leader takes home a salary of $165,000 paid for by Baltimore Schools District taxpayers. Sean King with Dr. Colonel West in a photo taken at the Morehouse event where he attended with an Oprah scholarship. Interesting. Sean King was born and raised in America, Kentucky. Although the name of Jeffrey Wayne King appears on King's birth certificate, his mother told him that his actual biological father is a light-skinned black man. By second grade, King's mother, Naomi K. Fleming King, was raising King and his brother as a single parent. And his birth certificate identifies him, Sean King, as being Caucasian, also known as white.
I have tremendous respect for the work that he's done. But when you're, if you hold yourself up to something that is not what you claim to be, then that's a problem if you're a leader. Now, I'm not saying that he's doing that, but that is what's in question now, and that's why this story is newsworthy. Here's what he said to me. So I asked him about it because there are all these claims about him, whether he's black, white, biracial, right, or whether was there a civil a hate crime that happened to him back in 1995. And I said to him last night, I said, what would you like to convey? And he said, number one, this attack isn't about me so much, but about derailing Black Lives Matter and the movement against police brutality. Number one, this attack isn't about me so much, but about derailing Black Lives Matter and the movement against police brutality. And he said, number two, the reports are all lies. I tried hard to debunk them, and others have said, that they are lies as well. And then he said, I will speak soon. And I asked him specifically, I said, you know, are you legally black? Are you legally white? Or are you biracial? Are you black or white? He says, I am biracial. And I said, is that what it is on your birth certificate? He did not answer. I am biracial. And I said, is that what it is on your birth certificate? He did not answer. So
it would be very quick and easy if you made a financial donation. So whether you can give $1 or $5 or $1,000, whatever it is you can give as much as you can. Give as often as you can.
We need to raise about $5,000 by donating cash. It's safe and it's easy.
Please, please, please give. Even if you can just give $1 or $5, please give.
You can give today. You can give at the Donate Now button right above my head. You can give today. You can give here online at Support the Movement. Is it .com, .org? Both. Give is $5 or $10. You can donate above on the button that says Donate Now, or donate on the chip in below and give today. Whether it's $1 or $2,000, God will bless you because of your gift. Give at the Donate Now button. Give right underneath me.
Uncle Booker T. Washington once said, there is another class of colored people who make a business of keeping the troubles, the wrongs, and the hardships of the Negro race before the public, having learned that they are able to make a living out of their troubles. They have grown into the settled habit of advertising their wrongs, partly because they want sympathy, and partly because it pays. Some of these people do not want the Negro to lose his grievances because they do not want to lose their jobs. Interesting.
Stunning fall today for the actor who told police he was the victim of a racial and homophobic attack. Tonight he's charged with a felony, and the Chicago police superintendent who went on national TV with his own words for Jussie Smollett. The actor who claimed he was the victim is tonight formally charged. Police say he orchestrated the whole thing.
Jussie Smollett took advantage of the pain and anger of racism to promote his career. I'm left hanging my head and asking why.
I come across a lot of black channels that advertise and monetize a lot of black oppression, and oftentimes I'm thinking, what is the solution behind what you're publicizing? Is it just to publicize to raise awareness, or is it so you get the ad revenue for what you're publicizing? And sometimes I often think, what if these things weren't going on?
there'll be no revenue for these channels. So it's just like the mechanic needs a broken car. People need to survive under brutality of the Negro, including members of the same Negro community, and some who even try to self-identify as a Negro.
I'm going to ask God to make bad things happen in your life.
But Shaun King isn't the only European racial fluid person leading, pontificating, and monetizing Negro pain and suffering.
A leading civil rights activist from the United States has found herself in the middle of a row about race. Rachel Dolezal, a community leader from the National Association of Coloured People, had presented herself as a black woman for years until a local TV news station and Dolezal's parents revealed that she is, in fact, white.
And now to our exclusive interview with the woman at the center of a cultural firestorm in this country over these last days, Rachel Dolezal, the NAACP chapter leader accused of lying about her race. Today, we asked her whether she has been deceptive and just why there are so many questions now surfacing about her past. Let me just ask you plainly, have you ever lied about your race?
No, because never have I been asked, are you human or not human, right? So yeah,
those words
race as a construct, again, as a fluid understanding. So I would say no.
Dolezal's predecessor as chapter president telling me he had no idea Dolezal might be white.
You had no idea your successor was white.
Right. It just didn't matter with me, really. So she said, I went by what she said.
And what did she say?
She said she was African American.
Are they white?
The civil rights activist and Africana Studies professor accused of lying about her race, marking black on a City of Spokane volunteer job application.
She had the best intentions and she did some good, but she did not go about it in the right way. She grew up white and she was really privileged growing up.
This photo of Dolezal sporting long dreadlocks extensions at an MLK rally in January, appearing different from the blonde girl born in Montana seen in these photos released by her parents. Dolezal's brother saying Rachel's physical transformation started a few years ago.
It started out with the hair, and then she'd have, probably a little darker tan.
A regional president of the NAACP, she's a face for the group which represents African Americans. A professor in African studies, she lists herself as black on official documents. Except she isn't. Rachel looked like this when she was younger. Local reporters smelled a rat and confronted her about her family.
Our daughter is primarily German and Czech and of European descent. Our daughter is primarily German and Czech and of European descent.
So she's white.
Caucasian. She's white. Mm-hmm.
Nothing about being white describes who I am. So what's the word for it? The closest thing that I can come to is if you're black or white, I'm black. I'm more black than I am white. I've experimented with my hair since living in Mississippi, really, and doing hair on the porch, braiding. And I think even the word disguise has been put out there and all that and it just sounds very intentional and deceitful and structured, and I just want to feel beautiful.
Former NAACP leader Rachel Dolezal agrees to plead deal on welfare fraud charges. Dolezal is a former NAACP leader in Washington State who was exposed in 2015 as a white woman pretending to be black. Rachel Ann Dolezal, also known as Nkechi Amari Diallo, is an American woman known for identifying and passing as a black woman while being of European ancestry and having no verifiable African ancestry. She is a former college instructor and National Association for the Advance of Colored People chapter president. So she was a president of the NAACP, a movement for the advancement of colored people. What I'm about to show you though is that every movement that we think is a black movement has always had some outside involvement and even some inside
involvement. Manipulating the majority for governmental liberal policy under the banner of black. The truth is, the NAACP was founded by people outside of the Negro race for their own political agendas. And what they would do, they would cherry pick a few people who were willing to compromise or were misguided or misdirected, and they would elevate them to an arena and a platform to challenge people that they didn't agree with. Cut a long story short, the NAACP was created so that W.D. Du Bois would go against Marcus Garvey and his Black Star Line movement. But this opposition was always engineered for political gain. So we see the NAACP had external interference guiding and manipulating the movement. Likewise, with the Urban League, we see outside influences steering and influencing the movement. Also, with the civil rights movement, there was many donors and sponsors externally steering and maneuvering the movement. And even today, we have the same dichotomy of external influences maneuvering and steering the movement under the benevolent banner of the Negro struggle against Negro brutality. But when you check the CV, when you check the resume, when you check the foundations, when you check the founders, when you check the funding, when you check the philosophy, when you check the theology, we see that it's not for the betterment or the furtherance of the Negro people as a collective, male and female, when it comes to fertility and replication. But instead use Black Death to further their own political demonstration.
Both want power, but the white liberal is the one who has perfected the art of posing as the Negro's friend and benefactor. And by winning the friendship and support of the Negro, the white liberal is able to use the Negro as a pawn or a weapon in this political football game that is constantly raging between the white liberals and the white conservatives. The American Negro is nothing but a political football, and the white liberals control this ball through tricks or tokenism, false promises of integration and civil rights. In this game of deceiving and using the American Negro, the white liberals have complete cooperation of the Negro civil rights leaders, who sell our people out for a few crumbs of token recognition, token gains, token progress.
Always be cynical when the media, which is state controlled, it gives you your black hero or your black movement and sanitizes it and appreciates it and idolizes it and romanticizes it. Always be careful. The media gave the thumbs up for the civil rights Martin Luther King, but gave the thumbs down for Malcolm X when he said we should be able to defend ourselves. The media gave the thumbs up for Urban League George Edmond, but gave the thumbs down for Black Star Line Marcus Garvey. The media gave the thumbs up for the NAACP W.D. Du Bois, but gave the thumbs down for the Black Panthers. The media gave the thumbs up for the Rainbow Coalition, which was created by Fred Hampton but then hijacked by Jesse Jackson, but gave the thumbs down for the Black Panthers. The media gave the thumbs up for Black Lives Matter, Alicia Swartz and them, but gives the thumbs down for the Black Hebrew Israelites. Never let the media determine your response.
The Negro Revolution is controlled by foxy white liberals, by the government itself, but the Black Revolution is controlled only by God.
I can't breathe. I can't breathe. George Floyd's last words, but they didn't die with him. They're still being heard, echoing all across this nation. They speak to a nation where, too often, just the color of your skin puts your life at risk. They speak to a nation where more than 100,000 people have lost their lives to the virus and 40 million have filed for unemployment, with a disproportionate number of those deaths and job losses concentrated in black and brown communities.
Being friendly and being a friend, I think, are two different things. I think there are many whites who act friendly toward Negroes. A fox acts friendly toward the lamb. And usually the fox is the one who ends up with the lamb chop on his plate. The wolf doesn't act friendly, and therefore the wolf has more difficulty in getting the lamb chop in his plate.
I'd like to point out, though, that...
I say that because it is usually if you study the structure of the Negro community, economically, politically, civically, psychologically, and otherwise, it's controlled by the white liberal, who usually poses as the friend of the Negro, who actually differs from the white conservative in the same way that the fox differs from the wolf. Their appetite is the same. Their motives are the same. It's only their mannerisms and methods that differ.
Come see us when you come to New York, VP Biden.
I will.
It's a long way until November. We got more questions.
You got more questions, but I tell you, if you have a problem figuring out whether you're for me or Trump, then you ain't black.
It don't have nothing to do with Trump. It has to do with the fact I want something for my community.
You this then. If in fact a calculation comes to you that you are satisfied with, would you then say, I'm for reparations?
The answer is it would depend on what it was and will include Native Americans as well.
Were I a Jew, I would be a Zionist. And my father pointed out to me, I did not need to be a Jew to be a Zionist. For I am.
Some of us remember reading in Charles Dickens' books about debt of prisons. Remember that? Debt of prisons. Oh, that was terrible in the 1800s in England. Well, I got news for you. We got debt of prisons in the United States today.
This is actually, this thought is a little scary. If Bernie is going to win the Bay, it's the people in this room right now that are going to make it happen. Yeah. And but thank you for that excitement. No, I mean that. There is often this tendency to hope and believe that there's somebody else, somewhere else, who's going to make happen things that we actually desperately want to happen. But then I started thinking even about the civil rights movement, and the truth is, for any of you who've ever studied the civil rights movement, most of the rooms that people organized and planned in didn't even have this many people in them. They were in church basements, they were at living room and kitchen tables, often with 8 or 9 people, strategizing for how they were going to organize systems to fight back against injustice. The truth is, it's not enough for us just here in the room, but I need you to make an emotional and mental switch and not just see yourselves, hear me, as fans of Bernie. And listen, it's great that you're a fan. It's great that you're a supporter. It's great that you comment on every tweet and Instagram post and share them. Like, it's great that you have the bumper sticker, but you're gonna have to pivot from just being a fan to becoming an organizer. And what that means is that you're going to have to duplicate yourself.
No doubt there have been a large number of whites who have posed as liberals and as friends of the Negro and who have time and again betrayed the Negro. On the other hand, I think one could point to a large number of whites who have struggled for civil rights,
Give me
for
an example.
equality, and have got little or nothing out of it, other than quite a few bruises.
Give me an example.
Well, the large number of white students who have gone into the South, for example, working for SNCC and other organizations.
Not working for SNCC or other organizations, but working for the white political machines who benefit by the voting efforts of Negroes.
Okay.
But I tell you, if you have a problem figuring out whether you're for me or Trump, then you ain't black.
You say then that the United States is not the black man's country.
Definitely
American
not.
laws
No,
are
no.
not black man's laws.
No. So,
American laws are not the black man's laws.
Well, the laws here in America were made by white people for the benefit of white people. The Constitution was written by whites for the benefit of whites. It was never written for the benefit of blacks. And when you read the Constitution, I think in Article 1, Section 2, or Section 1, Article 1, some one of the two, and it's in the Constitution, it says that that classifies black people as 3/5 of a man. 3/5 of a man, subhuman, less than a human being. It relegates us to the level of cattle, hogs, chickens, cows, a commodity that could be bought and sold at the will of the master. No, it was written by whites for the benefit of whites and to the detriment of blacks.
Finally gotten more police officers on the street. That was one of the goals that the president had when he pushed the crime bill that was passed in 1994. He promised 100,000 police. We're moving in that direction, but we can see it already makes a difference. Because if we have more police interacting with people, having them on the streets, we can prevent crimes. We can prevent petty crimes from turning into something worse. But we also have to have an organized effort against gangs. Just as in a previous generation we had an organized effort against the mob. We need to take these people on. They are often connected to big drug cartels. They are not just gangs of kids anymore. They are often the kinds of kids that are called super predators. No conscience, no empathy. We can talk about why they ended up that way, but first we have to bring them to heel. And the president has asked the FBI to launch a very concerted effort against gangs everywhere.
And when a black man stands up talking about his constitutional rights, he's out of his mind. So the only solution is separation. This can be brought about simply by letting our people be exposed to the truth about ourselves, about the white man, about our history and our condition in this country. And once we are exposed to the complete truth about things as they actually exist in this country, the masses of black people will choose complete separation from this entire system, political system, economic system, social system, and whatever other aspect or description or adjective you want to attach to it. Let us go back home to our own people, live among our own kind, and solve our own problems ourselves. And if the white man doesn't want us to go back to our own people and live in our own country, then since we can't get along together in peace on this country with white people, let us separate part of this continent, migrate to that separate territory, let the government give us everything we need to establish our own independent economic system and society, and thereby we'll be able to solve our own problems ourselves and prove that we are human beings and a part of the human family and can do for ourselves what other humans have done for themselves. And then we'll be able to stop blaming the white man for what he has done and stop begging the white man to solve our problems. We'll be able to solve our problems ourselves.
Needy Fuller once said, "There is no such thing as racial integration, therefore we don't use the term racial integration. There's no way to integrate racism. Racism can only be practiced or not practiced."
But there is an agenda, and the agenda is not what you think it is, because we've been trained that the agenda is for everybody, but it's really not. Amen. There's a specific people that is designed for, and we need to get into that. We need to understand that. Amen. Now, I'm gonna show you some things tonight, and I told you all I have to teach this way for a while, because I recognize I'm talking to my people. I recognize that. I'm not trying to. If others get offended, that's on them, but it's not. I'm not talking to you. You know, I'm talking to you if you want to receive the truth, but if you don't want to receive it, then I take it as we not talking to you. It's like family talking. because I understand the gospel. The gospel, everybody can be included. Everybody can be saved. But there is something happening specifically to us that for some reason nobody wants us to speak to us collectively. They want us to include everybody. When we talk to us, we got to include gays, and we got to include other ethnic groups. And when the Mexicans meet, they don't include us. And when the Italians meet, they don't include us. And they call it the Italian community, Italian American community, Mexican American community. They don't be inviting us in, the LGBT.
The white power structure to slow down that struggle for freedom and human dignity uses tricks. 100 years ago, they could do it with chains. Today, they use tricks, and one of the tricks that they've invented is this token integration. So get Negro, so-called Negro leaders to accept a few token crumbs of integration that don't solve any problem for the masses of black people in this country whatsoever, but it does make the hand-picked Negroes be satisfied to slow down the cry of the masses.
A lot of the black leaders are straight leading us to our demise. Okay? They have us working, doing their dirty work. For their dirty work, I mean the far left's dirty work. They got us working basically for them, because how they're getting us is they're playing us emotionally.
And so the point I'm trying to make is that everything that's been done has been done to kill or control or push down our numbers as a people. And the reason why we are so quiet about it and we don't really understand it is because everybody always knew that if you give a black Negro some money, he'll sell his people out. And that's what's happened. Our black people have sold us out. Our leaders have sold us out. Let me show you one of the great sellout. Many of them did it. Even Martin Luther King, many of them did it. But Jesse Jackson, when Jesse Jackson was against abortion at first, he was against abortion until he ran for president. When he was running for president, he had to switch. He got that money from Planned Parenthood, and he switched from being against abortion to being for abortion. That sold us out. That meant that let the eugenicists come in our community and begin to depopulate us, based upon our leaders selling us out.
And as long as the masses of black people are involved in the struggle for freedom, not integration, but freedom and respect as human beings, respect as men, and show that they're willing to die to be respected as men, then the power structure sits up and takes notice. But as long as this mass element is led, and when I say led, I use led in quotes, actually contained by Uncle Tom Negro leaders,
it's all about declining your numbers. That's why they don't care about black death. They don't care about crib death with black folk. They don't care about our infant rate mortality. They don't care about anything going. They don't care about the depopulation of our communities. They don't care about the deaths when we kill one another. None of that's concerned. They don't care when others kill us. They don't care. Why? That's the goal. The goal is to get rid of. Now that we can no longer physically use you, the goal is to get rid of you. Are you understanding what I'm saying? And so everything that we're into is designed to get rid of us. That's the reason why television is a propaganda campaign to make us live reckless with our lives, to make us copy reckless behavior, because that's the programming to keep us from knowing who we are. Because if we ever figured it out, you wouldn't be able to use me no more, and I won't fill up your jails, and I won't smoke your black and miles, and I won't drink your bad bird, and I'm not going to live in your ghettos, and you're not going to control my woman. Say amen. And you're not going to railroad my sons from middle school to prison. That's what it is. So therefore, if you wake these people up, it literally cripple the economy just by them stopping sinning. Most black preachers are in the bed with Planned Parenthood. That's why they never preach against abortion. They never preach against fornication, because fornication is what's fueling abortion. See, people that have marriages usually don't abort their children. Married people don't really abort. It's the ones that's doing fornication, that having these babies out of wedlock. They the ones aborting their kids. Amen. And it's a lot of Christian women aborting their children because they want to escape the shame that they thought they were supposed to be living righteous, but they was really out there living wrong, and they abort their child. That's happening in the church. So the pastors are in the bed with the abortions because they never preach against abort. They never preach against fornication that fuels abortion. And with that abortion comes the curse of shedding innocent blood. And nobody wants to deal with that. And that's why we stand down, because we keep shedding innocent blood but the goal was depopulation in the first place. Are y'all there? So they wanted to get rid of us, and so they came up with one of the things that they leave out of history. History is a total lie. It's more of a lie. I told my wife, I said, they didn't even tell you that Memorial Day was started by black people. They didn't even tell you that. We've been celebrating. It was 250. It was a group of black people, community, that went and dug up 257 soldiers that was thrown in the grave, in a mass grave. They were Union soldiers, fought against slavery. They was thrown in the grave, and those black people took and got out everybody in that ground, every 257 bodies, and individually buried them. And that was where Memorial Day came from. And they never even tell you, it wouldn't even give you that. To show you, they wouldn't even show your humanity in that.
My last point before finishing this video is that there are t-shirts and merchandise being made. Dear racism, I'm not my grandparents, sincerely these hands, or I am not my grandparents, or I am not my ancestors, I will F you up. Now what people don't understand is you are not even cut from the same fabric as your ancestors to endure the hardships they endured. So for our generation now to say these things, not knowing their history, is a massive insult to our ancestors. Now, I'm not saying we worship our ancestors, but what I'm saying is we appreciate our ancestors, because without them replicating themselves, we wouldn't exist. Without our ancestors coming together as male and female to produce life, we wouldn't exist. So no matter what your sexual preference is, or what you try to impose, without male and female, there is nobody. There is no man and there is no woman. There is no male and there is no female. So in our community, disrespect our ancestors is a terrible thing.
Remember the days of old. Consider the years of many generations. Ask thy father, and he will show thee, thy elders, and they will tell thee.
By yours grace, this is why this channel exists. The truth is, I and we are not built like our ancestors. We're not built like Toussaint, Zombie, Nate Turner, Boosa, Samuel Sharp, Will Brown, Solitude, Luis Delgrez, Paul Bogle, Samora, Patrice. We're not built like these. Just being a Negro doesn't qualify you to understand the race situation any more than being sick makes you an expert on medicine. So when we say we are not our ancestors, do we realize that this is disrespectful now? And that our ancestors paved the way for our people today? Not the left wing.
I'm going to ask God to make bad things happen in your life.
Or the right wing, but our people, thanks to the providence of the Most High Yah. In closing, I'd like to quote Neely Fuller. He said, "Those who willfully and deliberately cooperate with white supremacy," meaning those who do butt breaking, radical feminism, effeminate men, misogynist men, and all the above and beneath, are victims as well as those who resist it. And finally, to end with Ida B. Wells, she said, "The people must know before they can act, and there is no educator to compare with the press." I hope you found all this interesting, and as always, provoking thought. watching False Camera Action. Before you go anywhere, don't forget to click subscribe.